Hello, Internet. Welcome to the After Credits Podcast, the only show to tell you that the bird is the word. I am your host.
The bird is indeed the word.
I am your host, Aaron Waseslash, and with me today is Ryan Fury, because I couldn't come up with a better name this week.
You know what? I'll take Ryan Fury. Honest to God, dude.
Iron Max is no longer with us today. Presumably, he's on a drunken tirade. We'll track him down and get him back into fighting shape. Don't you worry. But
this guy.
Until then, we have another movie to discuss, and that's Iron Man 2.
Yes, sir. Iron Man 2.
Before we get to that, though, Ryan, last time we talked was just before the Christmas period. Did you have a good holiday, man?
I did. I got lots of presents because I'm spoiled.
You get anything good? You get any fun stuff?
Well, my mom got me 2 suits, which look really nice.
Like tuxedo suits, or
not tuxedos, but suits. Like I got a black suit and a gray suit that actually fit really, really well. So I'm looking good. She also got me a Nintendo Switch.
So now you and Max both have one. I have to get one soon.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get one soon. I currently have Super Mario Odyssey, which I haven't gotten to play yet, but I've heard is fantastic. And my roommate, who already had a Switch, has a bunch of other games that I'm gonna get to play. And I also got him Breath of the Wild, so I kind of got myself Breath of the
Wild. For my Christmas, I guess, I got Persona 5, which has been pretty fun so far. And, a new kitchen knife set, which I'm excited to use. I actually got to cut up some stuff the other day. It was nice. Very, very slick stuff. So thank you for joining me, Ryan. Today, as everyone probably knows, we're here to discuss Iron Man 2, the third installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's get some stats out of the way real quick, shall we?
Let's do it.
So, Iron Man 2 released on May 7th in 2010, so it's a couple years after the first Iron Man. Director is still Jon Favreau, who also plays Happy Hogan. The writer is Justin Theroux, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Justin Theroux, yeah, you got it.
Okay. It stars, without question, Robert Downey Jr., along with Gwyneth Paltrow, Don Cheadle replacing Terrence Howard, we'll get into that in a little bit, Scarlett Johansson, Sam Rockwell, Mickey Rourke, and, of course, Samuel L. Jackson. Did I not put Clark Gregg on here? Clark Gregg's in this movie, too. Forgot about that one.
Clark Gregg is absolutely in this movie.
And then let's get to the box office numbers. So, Iron Man 2, hot off the heels of the first film, is doing a bit better. Its opening weekend is $128,122,000. It domestically got $312,433,000. And, of course, the worldwide has a gross total of $623,933,000. So, a little bit better. Not a huge amount, but a little bit better. It is the third highest grossing film of 2010, which is pretty solid. And is currently ranked number 9 in the MCU, ahead of Thor Ragnarok by about 3 million.
Okay.
But again, that could still change. Thor Ragnarok, according to this site, is still in some theaters. I'm guessing second-run theaters, so it might still make 1 million before the end of its run, but probably not this.
And that's really interesting, considering how good Ragnarok was.
I know, right?
Wow. Damn. Okay. Damn.
So yeah, that's Iron Man 2. We're ready to jump into this movie, Ryan?
I'm ready.
It's
good.
So let's begin. Iron Man 2 starts off the heels of the first one. So in the last movie, you saw Iron Man doing a press conference where he basically reveals he's Iron Man. In this movie, it picks up right from there. You're seeing him on TV in a foreign country. I think it's Russia.
It is.
Okay, I wanted to confirm.
Can confirm it's Russia. Can confirm it says Moscow.
It's pre-Trump Russia. So it begins there, where Anton Vanko is watching the TV, and he sees Tony reveal he's Iron Man, shows off the Iron Man suit, the chest piece. You see all this stuff on the TV, and Anton dies. I believe he just dies of heart disease or some illness.
Some type of illness. It's not confirmed. It's not described.
It's not specified. I'm going to assume it's cancer. Ivan Vanko, who is in the hallway while his dad's calling to him, is drinking. He is out there until his father dies, and then he kind of has a bit of a, rage moment there. And then that's when he basically decides he's going to get revenge on Tony Stark. And you have a whole montage with the credits going. You see Tony's pictures and all the stuff on the walls as Ivan's working on whatever device or contraption he's going to use to take down Stark. He feeds his little bird a little bit there. We'll get to that in a little bit. And
it's cockatoo.
A little cockatoo. You're basically seeing a montage of him preparing his ultimate revenge plan. Let's go ahead and then switch over to Tony Stark, who is jumping out of his plane in his Iron Man suit to go to his world-famous Stark Expo, where it's a big expo to show off the greatest and latest technologies from all the big corporations around, I guess, the world.
Well, actually, hold on. Before you go a little further, it's also important to note that throughout the intro, while they're focusing on Ivan, like putting together this master plot to screw over Tony Stark, it's like months actually go by in that.
Oh, right,
in which case, you're actually seeing that the revolution of the Iron Man suit and the appearance of Iron Man has like dramatically shifted the political landscape of the world. And Tony actually talks about it a little later on, but he says like he has essentially become America's latest nuclear deterrent and is single-handedly
privatizing world peace.
Privatizing world peace. Yeah. So yeah, Iron Man's it becomes a big thing in the first act of the movie. But yes, Iron Man is essentially seen as this infallible, perfected, weapon that's going to protect everybody, and he's going to do it all by himself. Yeah, all right, go.
So he goes to the Stark Expo, which is something his father started, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I know, I'm going to say that quite a bit, because a lot of stuff it's foreshadowing a lot of stuff. So he's at the Stark Expo introducing the big event, and then I think he has some presenters go on after him, and that's when he walks off stage to measure his blood toxicity. We aren't told exactly what this is in reference to yet. We'll find out soon. But his blood toxicity at this point is, I think, at maybe double digits, 11 or 12%. It's low, but it's a little alarming. You're like, what's going on here? So then, I'm trying to remember, the first act, I'm getting a little jumbled at the moment here. So after he does that, he leaves the expo with Happy, and they are introduced to a woman who gives him a subpoena. There's a bit of back and forth banter. There always is. And that's when Tony turns to Happy, and he says, how far is it to Washington? And about 250 miles. And that's when they take off to go to Washington. When they get there, Tony's there for a hearing to determine whether or not he should hand over the suit to the government, the Iron Man suit to the government. Testifying against him is Sam Rockwell's character, which is Justin Hammer, if I remember right.
Yep, Justin Hammer. Oh my god, Sam Rockwell. He's fucking hilarious.
His role's pretty hilarious. Some of the dialogue's a bit corny, but for the most part, he's pretty hilarious. Throughout the whole scene, he's basically trying to say that, Tony's dad is great, Tony's great, but you can't just have this suit not in the hands of the government. And of course, Justin himself wants his hands on the suit as well. But before that all happens, they call in another witness, or another person to testify. That would be Brody. Forget the name for a second.
Colonel James Rhodes.
And there's a big, big introduction where he walks in through the doors, and you're like, what, who is that? Who's that? And then you see him turn to the camera as he talks to Tony, and he reveals that it's Don Cheadle. Not Terrence Howard. They don't look the same. Don't be racist. Don't assume they're the same person. Stop that.
Of course, Don Cheadle is a lot darker than Terrence Howard. A lot darker.
And a lot,
I can say that.
And a lot thinner, too, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's a lot. Well, yeah, no, because Don Cheadle's a pretty skinny dude.
And I would say that Terrence Howard, not fat, but he definitely bulked up a bit. I don't know if it's for that role or just in general, but whatever. And that's when Tony walks up to him, and I can't remember the exact line he says, but the response from Rhodey is, listen, I'm here, let's move on. It basically saying, hey, this is Rhodey, move on with the plot.
Look, I'm here, it's me, move on.
It's a clever way to address the audience. They've changed the actor, but it's not a big deal. Just roll with it. I like it. So they sit down, and they ask him to read a specific... Oh, I forgot to mention, the man running the hearing.
The hearing?
I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Senator Stern or something like that, right?
I believe so. Yeah, played by Gary Shandling, this fucking guy.
Yep, it's very important you remember that because
We'll see him later.
in a few films that's going to matter. For now,
We'll see him later.
For now, it won't matter. But just remember this in a few movies. Anyway, so Senator Stern asks Rhodey to read a passage from his long report on the Iron Man suit and Iron Man in general. There's a bit of discrepancy. He says he should read more of it to give full context. They don't care. He reads it, tries to give a little more context, saying that Iron Man may be dangerous, but he's still doing a lot more good than damage. But they're trying to ignore that, sweep that under the rug. And that's when they decide to bring up the fact that other countries around the world have been noted to start developing their own Iron Man suits. Tony hacks the presentation and shows actual footage of what's actually happening, including a failed attempt in North Korea, a failed attempt in Iran, or is it Iraq? It's one of the two. And a failed attempt in, of course, Hammer Industries, which guy gets, stabbed in half, and it's hilarious.
It's real bad. It's real gruesome.
It's really bad, but it's a good scene. It's fun to see Justin basically just freaking out and saying, the guy's fine, and then that's when Tony brings up one of my favorite lines, which is, most countries aren't going to be catching up to the Iron Man technology for about another 10 or 15 years. In Hammer's case, about 20.
God. So I had never seen a man get insulted so bad.
And on such a big public forum, too. That's pretty bad.
Woof. Oh man! Speaking of insulting him on a public forum, when Justin Hammer actually is initially introduced, the senator says, "We're gonna bring in
a tech expert, yeah,
our foremost weapons expert, who currently has the defense contract with the United States military, Justin Hammer." And Tony leans into the mic and he says, "I recognize the arrival of Justin Hammer, but I'm wondering when an actual expert will be coming to the hearing as well." It's just damn.
This movie's got a lot of stuff going on, but this is probably one of the best scenes of the film, just because of how simple and how hilarious it is. There's just a lot of stuff happening on one moment, and it's fun. It's just this whole moment is just a lot of fun. So after this hearing, Tony goes out. Basically, everyone's cheering for him because he's like, I privatized world peace. I'm a successful nuclear deterrent. Peace out, y'all. And he just fucking leaves the whole building. He returns back to California to tinker around on his workshop, working on all his stuff. That's when Pepper comes in to his workshop. Good old Pepper. I love her. She's great. She comes in and is basically throwing all this information at him, you're getting rid of your art gallery, you're getting rid of this, you're doing that. Basically, he's doing more things that are kind of causing discomfort with the CEOs in the company, and people are wondering if he's still a little unhinged. And during this whole exchange, he comes up with the brilliant idea to make Pepper the CEO and step down from the position himself. She reluctantly agrees, and they celebrate briefly. And this leads to them looking for a new assistant. But before we get the new assistant, I forgot something. Before Pepper and Tony talk, Tony does another blood toxicity test, and he is removing the core from his current Energizer battery in his chest, his arc reactor, and puts a new core in, a palladium core. And it turns out he is running through these like crazy as long as he keeps using the Iron Man suit. And they're currently looking for a replacement, and also to help reduce the blood toxicity levels, which continue to increase. I believe during this scene they're at about 20%, and it's all because of the palladium in his chest.
Because burning palladium inside your chest is really bad. It's really bad.
Speaking of Iron Man cores, though, now we'll go over to Ivan Vanko, who is in the middle of making his own rudimentary version of the Iron Man suit, except instead of being a full-on suit, it's more like a chest piece, like vestment, with like arm bits that have whips on them. It's hard to really explain.
Right. So in the initial opening, like he successfully creates a miniaturized arc reactor. And now in this one, you're seeing that he's applying that energy and that tech to this kind of upper harness curious with like a crazy ass like energized whips. They're so fucking cool. No lie, they're so beast.
And this is when he gets tickets to go to Monaco, and this is where we to meet up with Tony Stark, which we'll get into in a little bit. Going over to back to Tony, they're currently trying to find a replacement for Pepper while she becomes the CEO. He needs a new assistant. And I think she needs one too, so it's kind of like an assistant for both, I guess. It's not super clear. The assistant comes in from legal. Her name is Natalie Rushman. Sorry.
Spoilers, son!
She comes in during a brief MMA training with Happy. The two of them kind of tussle while Pepper and Tony have a little bit of back and forth, talking about the potential sexual harassment lawsuit that's bound to happen with this very, very attractive redhead. Only to find out that she can take down Happy without any trouble, and I think Tony's a little aroused by this. It's not very clear, but I think he is.
There's no... It's not little. It's not a little. It's not so little.
With this new assistant...
Also, God, Natalie Portman is so fucking young in this movie.
You mean Scarlett Johansson?
Yeah, I did say Natalie Portman. I'm sorry. Scarlett Johansson. Thank you. But she seems really, really young, and this is not saying anything bad about Scarlett Johansson as she is now, but you can tell how young she was when she got this role. Fun fact. Sorry to interrupt, but fun fact. Scarlett actually wanted this role so bad, she actually dyed her hair red before the audition.
That's cool.
To show how committed she was to the role.
I gotta say, too, looking back 10 years ago when she... Well, I guess it's less than 10 years now, but looking back 8 years ago to this film, she hasn't aged that badly. She actually has aged very gracefully.
Bad. Yeah, she hasn't aged bad at all, in the slightest. She is still a fucking knockout. It's just, it struck me exactly how young she looked in Iron Man 2.
Oh, yeah. With a new assistant in hand, and with Pepper now CEO, Tony's ready to party and go on vacation. And so they're off to Monaco for some much-needed R&R. And when they're there, they meet up with the Vanity Fair reporter from the previous film. They meet up with Justin Hammer. They have a little bit of an interview. I won't spoil all the best lines here. Go see the movie. It's got some fun lines. It's got some good dialogue. During this, Tony wants to cause more trouble, and he sees that he's got a car in the Monaco race, the Grand Prix, and he decides, if you own a car, if you own a race car, why don't you drive it? So he goes and he decides he's going to drive in the race himself instead of his professional racer, I guess. I didn't know he had one of those. So he's in the race. He's with all those stock cars, just blind speed running through this whole thing. During this whole thing, a man dressed all in orange in the pit area steps onto the track, and it is revealed when his orange jumpsuit burns away that it is none other than Ivan Vanko, who no one else knows except us for the moment. So just calm down.
It's just this crazy dude that walked out into the middle of a racetrack. He's gonna die.
It's some crazy Mexican-looking Russian man who is whipping these cars. I'm pointing it out because it's obvious. He's taking these energy whips from this arc reactor harness he's built, and is just whipping up these cars, cutting them into ribbons. It's ridiculous.
He's shearing cars in half, as they pass. What the fuck?
It's pretty impressive how how he's able to make that technology work. One of the cars he cuts up is Tony's car, of course, because Tony's got to get involved in this. Meanwhile, Happy and... I guess, no, not Happy. It's just Pepper, who sees it on TV and realizes what's going on. She finds Happy, and they go onto the track themselves to find Tony and give him his current suit. The Mark IV, right? I think it's Mark IV.
No, this is the Mark IV.
Okay.
Right, this is the Mark IV.
So they go and they find Tony, who is currently trying to... weasel his... not weasel, but he's trying to dodge all the all the whips.
No, I'm dumb. I'm sorry. The Mark IV is the full Iron Man suit. The Mark V is what we'll see a little bit later on in this scene.
Okay. So Tony is dodging all the whips and everything, and that's when Happy runs into Ivan with his car. There's a fun little slapstick moment here where they eventually get the suit to Tony, and he enters into... It's a suitcase that folds out into an Iron Man suit, and he enters into the Mark V, armor?
That's the Mark V. The
Okay.
briefcase armor, which has such a cool fucking animation sequence. I swear to God, I lost my mind the first time I saw it in the trailer. It's just so good.
I don't think...
Okay.
They definitely one-up this with the watch armor he does in later movies, but this is definitely the first step into making a more mobile suit. It's pretty damn cool. So during this scene, there's a bit of a fight. Tony gets to see the full effect of what this guy's rudimentary armor can do, and he brings him down without too much hassle.
Well, I mean, like the suit gets like damaged, and like he takes some damage, but he eventually like ends up eating him.
He does, but it's nothing that takes the suit out permanently. It's damage that he can easily work around. So it's something I'd say it's still relatively easy for him to deal with. But it definitely reveals one important fact, though, and that is that other people can make his technology. His suit is no longer a unique thing, and that's when the governments of the world, or at least the American government, is kind of hounding him, saying, "Hey, remember when you said that no one would get to do this in 10 or 15 years? Guess what? It's here. It's now." And, of course, Ivan gets arrested. Tony goes in to discuss with Ivan the suit, the details as to how he made it, and that's when Vanko reveals that, "Oh, hey, that palladium in your chest, it's a painful way to die, isn't it?" And Tony freaks out, realizing that, oh, he knows that I'm dying, and he knows that he's basically won without having to do much of anything. So this is where Tony begins his downward spiral into some sort of depression, which is where I'll leave this to you, Ryan.
All right. So first off, just as a little bit of backtrack, in that conversation, that jailhouse conversation between Ivan and Tony, it's revealed, of course, that Ivan is coming after him because the Starks have a history of kind of just stealing and like murdering people who have what they want, and it's revealed that Ivan's father, Anton, actually worked with Howard Stark on the arc reactor technology. Which is how Ivan was able to learn how to make it, since his father was one of the original guys who came up with the idea.
I should also mention, too, that during the fight sequence, Justin Hammer is watching very intently and very interested in what this newcomer's technology is. So that's important for here in a few minutes.
Very true, very true. But he says, and he has this cool like little mini monologue where he says, well, because Tony's kind of gloating, is like, hey, you had a shot, you took it and you missed, so yeah, you're going to prison. And he said, Ivan says, if you make God bleed, the people will stop believing in him. I can't do the accent, so I'm going to stop there. But he says, people will stop believing in him, and there will be blood in the water, and the sharks will come. He says, so I don't need to kill you or to beat you. I can sit back right in this room and watch the world devour you. Which is really hilarious, which is really cool because after the initial fight, when the guards were dragging Vanko away, he spits blood at Tony, or like in Tony's direction, and he says, "You lose." Which didn't really make sense in the initial confrontation because he's the one getting dragged away, but it's made clearer here. It's like he's essentially attacking his reputation, which proves to be a very valid claim because on the ride back, Pepper is seeing all of these reports about how Iron Man is supposed to be this infallible dude that can never be beaten, and he's gonna always protect us. And here comes this dude that can obviously like make similar technology and almost win. How are we gonna keep trusting in Tony Stark to protect everyone when he can barely protect himself at this point? This leads to a bit of like the depression aspect kicking in. People are no longer believing in him, and he still can't figure out a way around the palladium issue. His blood toxicity is still rising. He thinks he wants to tell Pepper, but with all of the crazy nonsense, he was trying to get her to just take a vacation with him and like go away and kind of recharge, like kind of recharge our batteries. When Pepper says not everybody runs on batteries, and I still have your company to run. So they get back, and Tony's really not feeling great. It's at this point that Rhodes is also is finally made aware that the palladium in Tony's chest is causing is causing him to slowly die with the repeated use of the Iron Man technology, and it starts manifesting as this like crazy, like grayish, like kind of matrices like spreading out from Tony's chest. In regards to like it's almost like a metal virus, like kind of creeping out from the arc reactor, which I thought looked fantastic and really well done. But Tony, of course, is trying to shoulder the whole thing by himself, but at the same time, he's very sad because people aren't believing in him. So Tony does what he does best, and he throws a party to kind of just not think about it. It's actually worth noting here that there's a scene between him and Natalie. Natalie? Yes?
Oh, you mean Natalie Rushman?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where I fucked up earlier. Because her alias is Natalie Rushman.
I wanted to make sure that you were talking about Natalie Rushman, the character, not Natalie Portman, the actress.
No, I accidentally said Natalie Portman, but I was trying to figure out how the fuck I got those two confused, and that's how, because they both have the same first name. Anyway, there's a scene where he's talking to Natalie, and he says, I probably shouldn't throw this party. It's probably sends the wrong message, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, Natalie's being really seductive towards him, and I was trying to figure out why, and it's made a little bit more apparent in later on in the movie. But he asks her, he says, hypothetical question, if this was your last birthday, what would you do? And she says, well, I would do whatever I want with whomever I wanted to do it with. Pointed look, and then she leaves. So it cuts to Tony, piss drunk,
quite
in
literally,
the Iron Man suit, scratching a record on the turntable, and he's actually throwing this huge party at his penthouse, and he's in the fucking Iron Man suit. He's gone. He's out of fucking control. So
when this scene came up, I pointed out to Amanda my thoughts on it, and my first thought was, this is basically like having a little kid. It's like having a party with all your little friends as kids, and the kid who's hosting the party brings out his parents' gun. Basically, that's kind of what this whole scene's basically like.
That is a very apt analogy. Honest to God, he is walking around with the most destructive weapon on the planet, and he's using it for party favors, for party tricks at this point. Pepper is fucking aghast and just has no idea how to fucking do this. She's trying to play it off and get Tony to end the party, but of course Tony's not having it. He's drunk. He's trying to forget about all of his problems right now. This is where Rhodey comes in, because Rhodey, who's on the phone with Air Force generals, and I personally guarantee that within 24 hours Iron Man will be back on watch. And he'll be doing the goddamn thing like he's supposed to be doing. He walks into Tony's house and sees Tony going insane, essentially, with the Iron Man suit. Rhodey is not amused at all. I mean, he's literally going to bat with him with, all of these superiors, and, for him with all these superiors, and he's literally pissing it away. So Rhodey, after seeing that Pepper can't handle it, decides he's had enough. He this is fucking stupid, and we need to settle this before anybody gets hurt. So he makes his way down to the basement, which is where Tony keeps essentially all of the marked armor suits thus far. Marks 1 through 4. Mark 5 is a portable version, so you don't see that. Oh, and Mark 4, he's wearing Mark 4 currently.
Okay.
Uh, so he then, like, the next thing you see is, you say, you hear everybody partying, and you hear this voice say, "I'm only gonna say this once." Everybody parts, like the crowd parts, and you see Rhodey in the all silver Mark II outfit, which is fully functional and capable. It just doesn't have the red paint or the gold plated metal replacing certain bits of it. But he steps up in the Mark II and he says, "Everybody get out." And everybody, of course, bounces because this dude's in a fucking Iron Man suit. And he says to Tony, "You don't deserve to wear that suit, so shut it down." And Tony, who is still drunk and honestly can't believe this is happening, he turns around and he says, "DJ." And the DJ, who's still there for some fucking reason,
he's committed to his work.
He was hiding under his goddamn turntable. But he pokes his head out, and Tony says, give me a fat beat to kick my buddy's ass to." So the DJ actually starts playing some fucking music before he runs, and a fight ensues between Rhodey and Tony in these Iron Man suits, which goes crazy. And Tony is starting to realize how out of control he's becoming, but he still doesn't want to, like, relinquish it. So after the fight, like, almost winds down, Tony puts his hand up to threaten to fire a repulsor blast. Of course, Rhodey puts his hand up too. He's like, "Put your hand down." And Tony says, "No, you want to be the War Machine? Take your shot. Take the suit." And they end up firing at each other and causing a huge explosion in the penthouse, which knocks Tony unconscious until he starts to woozily come to, and he sees that Rhodey is actually walking off and taking flight with the suit. So he actually takes the Mark II suit from him. Now, at this point, we're going to cut to Vanko in prison. He gets a meal that comes with a note. It says, "Enjoy the potatoes." And when he checks the mashed potatoes, he realizes that it's actually a lump of plastic explosive, with a timer in it that he can set up. And then one of the guards brings in another prisoner into his cell that looks kind of like him. And they also realize they have the same number. They have the same inmate number on their shirts. So Vanko, of course, puts two and two together, kills the dude, sets the bomb to explode the cell inside of it, and a guard comes by with the key, lets him out. The cell explodes behind him as he's walking away, essentially faking Vanko's death. Meanwhile, some more guards put a bag over his head. They snatch him out of the prison in all of the chaos with the prison break. And when they take the bag off, they're sitting there in a lovely air hangar. And Justin Hammer is sitting in the middle of this air hangar, this plane hangar, with a dinner table set up, like waiting to host Ivan and like get him some great food, and essentially pitch that I'd love to work with you, and I saw what you did standing up to Tony in front of God and whoever else knows, and that was fantastic. That was amazing. But if I may, you don't just try and kill the guy, you go after his legacy. So I want to be your benefactor. I want to put my resources at your disposal so that you can destroy Stark's legacy, because I want to make Iron Man look like an antique, and I need your help to do that. So Ivan says, yeah, I can do that, but first I need you to get me my bird. God damn it, I want my bird from Russia. So he says, sure, we'll anything's possible. We'll get you your fucking bird. That's weird. Ivan is taken to Hammer Tech Industries, where he sees these suits that Justin is currently working on, and he says, "You know what? I can work with these. Like, give me a couple of days. I can work with these." And Justin's idea is to essentially have Ivan make a better Iron Man suit, or a better fleet of Iron Man suits, and then he'll display them at the Stark Expo and essentially take a dump on Stark's front yard. His words, not mine.
It should be noted here, too, that he's hacking his way into Hammer's technology with almost no problem at all, showing what Tony had said before to a much more effective degree. Justin Hammer's technology and software is very, very crappy.
It's very weak. It's nowhere near Stark levels or Vanko levels, apparently.
Vanko can even beat it. He was living in a cave with a box of scraps.
You know what? Actually, that's perfect. This is how Stain fucked up when he tried to make the arc reactor in the first movie. I think you can only make a rudimentary arc reactor in a cave. It's the only two places that the arc reactor has been successfully created. I mean, in a fucking like dark, cramped space with like barely any fucking. I'm losing the words. Yes, resources and supplies. Nothing. It's just a box of scraps.
If you'll allow me, analogy here, real quick. Obadiah Stane and Justin Hammer kind of represent the AAA big game publishers, whereas Tony and Ivan Vanko, who live in their caves with their box of scraps, are the indie developers. And it goes to show that with limited resources, you too can make a very, very good product without having to spend a shit ton of money to end up with, well, whatever Justin Hammer's putting out. I mean, Christ, look at that. Look at that shit.
Bad. It's so bad. Oh my god, Justin Hammer's like the EA of weapon design.
That's so bad.
Woof. Oh man. But alas, so it's at this point that Rhodey actually takes the Mark II suit to an Air Force base. Everybody, of course, is stunned that he managed to get the working Iron Man suit to the U.S. government, and they say, "Okay, we're gonna this is we finally have the technology. We're gonna put this together. We're gonna do it." And they actually give Justin Hammer a call because, of course, he does have the standing military defense contract with the government. So Hammer does this hilarious pitch meeting where he's pulling out all of these guns. He's like, okay, so we have this, we have this, we have that, we have this submachine rifle, we have this assault rifle, we've got this shotgun, we've got this fucking huge ass Gatling gun, we've got these this napalm launcher, we have this bunker buster, this is the best thing I've ever made, And he says, so what are you thinking, guys? You're like the Sphinx. I can't read you over here. What are you thinking? And Rhodey's sitting there through this presentation. He says, I think we'll take it. And he says, you'll take it? All right, which one? And he says, all of them. So he says, all of them. Okay, sure, why not? So we'll cut over now to Tony, who's going nuts still. We see him resting on the inside of a donut, a large donut, eating a box of donuts. And this guy in a black trench coat on the ground level says, "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the donut." And of course, it is none other than Colonel Nicholas J. Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., down there. Eye patch having ass. Anyway, it cuts to them inside.
So I don't want to be rude here, but which eye am I supposed to look at when I'm talking to him?
Do I look at the patch or the eye? You know what? We never actually got a clear-cut answer on that.
We never did.
We never will. But Fury is talking to him. He says, "So like you've got a lot of problems. Your boy like walked into your house, beat your ass and stole your suit. And that rash on your neck doesn't look too great. You know, we got to get you. Like, I'm here to try and get you back on track because we actually need you to do what you do. Like, you're not the only superhero. You're not the center of my universe. I have a lot of big stuff going on, and I have a big thing that I have to take care of in New Mexico. So I need to get you on point. It's at this point that one of the agents comes over and says, we've managed to clear the perimeter. Tony looks over, and it's none other than Natalie Rushman, his assistant, who turns out to be a fucking S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She pops a squat next to Fury, and he says, Agent Natasha Romanoff is a S.H.I.E.L.D. shadow that has been tasked to watch over you. God damn it. So the name drop of Natasha Romanoff is none other than the Black Widow, a very prominent member of the Avengers, and just a badass all around that can keep up with these guys while only being human. They give him a small shot to kind of mitigate the effects of the palladium poisoning, but he says, but Tony's kind of lamenting. He says, I've tried everything. There's no known combination or there's no known elements or combination of elements that will act as a replacement to the palladium core. And Fury says, well, your father said that the arc reactor was a stepping stone to something much bigger. He said that he was on the brink of discovering something that was going to change the energy race as we know it and make nuclear reactors look like AAA batteries. He then said that you were the only person who would be able to finish what he started and to complete his work. Tony says, well, that doesn't make any sense because my father was a cold and uncaring man who really only cared about his company. And he says, if you're like, I don't know, my father thought I was the only person who could secure his legacy. That doesn't make sense to me. It seems like you know him better than I did. And Fury says, well, I think I do know him better than you did. He was one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D. Fucking floors Tony. He says, wait, what? And Fury's like, okay, I gotta get going. So you're on this, right? Like, you have to figure out what your father was gonna put together, and that should solve all of your problems, and you'll be able to get the fuck back to work. Bye now. So it's at this point that we get to Act 3, which is Tony trying to piece together his father's legacy. Aaron?
All right, man. There's a lot of stuff still. We've got. This is a short movie, but there's so much that happens. It's ridiculous. Okay, so picking up. So Tony's not going to get his father's history back together just yet. He's got a few other things he's got to take care of first. Well, actually, no. He does do the video first. So he gets the trunk of stuff, and in there he gets this old bunch of film reels, and he gets to listen to his dad talk, do a little presentation for essentially the Stark Expo back when it first started. And one of the reels, his father addresses him directly, saying that, you will be the one to carry on my legacy, you'll be the one to figure out what I couldn't figure out, and so forth. Tony, struggling to figure out what that means, sneaks past the security, that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents that are supposed to be watching him. How, it's never really explained. He just leaves. And he goes to, quote-unquote, apologize to Pepper by buying her strawberries. And it doesn't go quite as well as anyone would hope.
Did you know there's only one thing on this earth that I am allergic to?
See, but he's doing better, though. He remembers a correlation between her and strawberries.
Good job, Tony.
Anyway, so he tries to apologize. She doesn't really accept it. He almost outs Natasha, but doesn't, and is just flabbergasted how she is so good at her job. While he is there, he sees an old model of the Stark Expo, like a 3D printed map, so to speak, and he decides to take it. and put it in his convertible. And that's a really awkward way to carry a giant piece of, a giant, installment like that. He brings it home and has Jarvis scan it, and in the scanning, he's able to basically rebuild a virtual version of that map, and then through various, trial and error and various deductions, he is able to deduce that the centermost structure represents a nucleus, and the other various pavilions represent, the electrons to make an atom. So, by messing with the virtual map, he's able to then construct rediscover, so to speak, a new element that his father has secretly left for him. Possibly. It's not clear exactly how he knew that was going to be there, but it's a good trail of...
I honestly, I really like that scene, because it's not obvious, but he's like, there's something about this layout that looks weird. Remove this, that almost looks like an atomic design. This would be the nucleus, da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, it's good. I personally like that one really good. And it's like the proposed element should serve as a replacement for the palladium core. Unfortunately, this element does not exist.
Now, did they ever name what the element was? Okay, so I'm going to call it tritium until I have a real name, because that's the best name I can come up with for now. Anyway, so in order to make this tritium, Tony has to basically go back into workshop mode, and so he uses the things, the mechanic arm things from the previous movie, some sledgehammers and some weird, giant oversized industrial piping, to basically make himself a giant... it's not a hadron collider, but it has a similar look to it. It's a big tube that goes all around his workspace. During this, Coulson shows up and says he's leaving to do another assignment in New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Hint, hint. In that little scene, you see a little Easter egg for Captain America, which is pretty funny. And then Tony proceeds to use the mini hadron collider, not really a hadron collider, to make a laser, bounce it off a reflective crystal-like surface into this little metal bit that energizes it to form his new chess piece. And while Jarvis is running tests on it, he gets a phone call from Ivan Vanko, which I should probably talk about here for a quick second. Hammer, fed up with Vanko's lack of cooperation, so to speak, decides to take away his bird, have him be babysat by some guards, and says, listen, you didn't deliver me on my suits. You say drones are better, but I don't want drones, I want suits. I'm going to take whatever drones you got, I'm going to show them out at the expo. You're going to stay here, and you're going to give me something that works, damn it, or I'm going to take you back to where you're supposed to be, dead. So he leaves, and Vanko isn't a pushover. He is able to outdo these guards, and he hacks into Justin's systems because they're still just as terrible as they were before. And during all this, he calls Tony, which is where we go back to where I left off.
Actually,
they have a little conversation.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm actually looking at the... because I wanted to figure out exactly what that new element was called. No, because they hadn't actually landed. They hadn't actually landed on a name for it. But I actually figured out, or it references something that's really, really cool, and that's a really awesome tie-in that I didn't notice until just now. But in the course of his of his studying all of his father's notes, he's reading a couple of scientific journals with a lot of notations and whatnot. And on one page, there's actually a drawing of this cube within a cube that I didn't really come to realize what it was, but it kind of looks like the Tesseract, which we'll see in a few movies. But the idea is that the proposed element that Howard was trying to design could theoretically create an energy pattern similar to the energy found in the Tesseract.
And that would make a lot of sense, but we won't discuss that in more detail until we get to, what is it, Captain America?
It's just. I'm sorry. Yes, I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to put that out there.
No. I think it's cool. I didn't catch that. So good research there. Good research. So they're doing. Let's see. I left off on the phone call, correct? So they're talking on the phone, gabbing away. Ivan's talking about all the hot high school boys he's going to be sleeping with. Oh wait, wrong movie. So they're talking, and Tony's trying to trace the phone call while Ivan's basically threatening him, saying, "I'm going to still take you down. I'm surprised you're still alive, and you're going to, be sorry you ever mess with me and my papa." And so Ivan hangs up before the call can be fully traced, but some really basic deductions allow Tony to think that, oh, he's in the New York area. Huh, Justin's company is located in the New York area. And, oh, that would make a lot of sense that he would hire... Okay, so I know what's going on now. So Tony basically preps up to take off and go to the Stark Expo where he knows Justin's going to be.
The Stark Expo is also mainly being held in New York.
So during the previous scene, during the previous act, when they had Justin showing off his weapons to the military guys for the stolen Iron Man suit, one of the first things they wanted to do was to show it off at the Stark Expo. Question: does it make sense to show a stolen Ferrari at a car show?
Oh my god.
I don't get why they thought that was a good idea. And I just, as soon as Rhodey said we need to take this to the Stark Expo, or someone said it, and I listened to it, and I'm like, why? That's the last place I'd want.
I honestly feel really bad for Rhodey throughout this entire fucking movie, because it's constantly Rhodey getting caught in bad situation after bad situation. He goes to bat he was asked to do a full assessment on the Iron Man weapon and capability for the government, which is then turned against his boy, saying that he's a potential threat to the country and blah 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 by picking out systematically things that he said within the entirety of the report. So then he goes to bat for Tony, who then is going through his own personal fucking thing and gets drunk in the Iron Man suit, so he has to take the suit from him and give it back and give it to the government, because he thinks that the government should have a weapon like this to defend the country. And then the government says, well, we're going to show this off at the Stark Expo and show that, we are the dominant military force on the planet, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. And Rhodey's just constantly could you guys please stop doing horrible things, please?
Man,
just seriously, constantly, throughout the whole movie, I felt so bad for him.
Speaking of getting shit on, let's go to the Stark Expo, where Justin Hammer is doing his presentation. So oh boy. So he's basically shit-talking Tony's whole nonsense, and then reveals his drones for the Marines and the Navy and whatever. And he says the commanding officer in the first flight suit that he has under his jurisdiction, Colonel James Rhodes, and you see the War Machine armor, which looks pretty slick. They did a good job.
Badass.
It looks way better than the Iron Patriot armor, because fuck that nonsense. I wish Norman Osborn had been there to see it, though. Anyway, so you see the armor, and then Tony shows up as soon as the reveal's happening, and he's like, "Where's Vanko?" And what's his name? Hammer is like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." Tony's trying to get the information, and he tells Rhodey he has to trust him. And I think Rhodey does, because he feels like something's going on here too. And that's when the suit and the drones that Hammer has put together start acting a little fishy. And that's when it's revealed that they're all being remotely controlled by none other than Ivan Vanko, because of course they are. Because that technology, that software isn't very up to code, and of course he can get into it right, no problem. So Tony's objective at this point is to get these machines away so that everyone can be safe, and to help Rhodey overcome the, I guess, hack job that's on his suit right now. So he flies out of the building to try to get away from everybody. The machines that can't fly shoot up at him. The machines that can fly follow him, including Rhodey. And glass falls from the ceiling all over the audience. Everyone should be dead. We don't know for sure, but I'm assuming everyone's dead. So there's a bunch of flying all over the expo. Stark is trying to avoid all these things. There's some gunfire. A few machines fall. Again, the machines that do fall land in crowds that should be killing people. I feel like the death count for this is not as high as it probably should be.
Folks were dying.
Folks are definitely dying. That sharp glass falling from the ceiling like that would have ripped some people up to nothing. I would not want to be there for that. So he's flying all over the expo, trying to get these guys off his tail, trying to bring in as many as he can. He ends up eventually getting them down to just Rhodey. But before we get to that, let's go over to Pepper, who has basically cornered Hammer, and is trying to get information out of him as to what's going on. Luckily, Black Widow forces the information out of him, and basically makes him tell that Vanko is still alive, and he is back at Hammer Industries. So she grabs Happy, and the two of them roll off to Hammer Industries for a fun little car scene, and then a very fun, very exciting scene where she beats up a hallway full of dudes and finds the room where his workstation was, and is able to counter-hack the virus, I guess we'll just call it that for now, the software that Vanko had used to basically free Rhodey from his puppet-like state. But Vanko's nowhere to be seen. And everyone's like, where's Vanko? Where in the world is Vanko San Diego? And turns out he left already with his upgraded suit and upgraded weapons to meet Tony and, of course, Rhodey in the middle of this big-looking Asian display, I guess. And they have a big fight. Of course, Tony and War Machine, now no longer hacked, fight the drones that are there first, and then Vanko shows up with his upgraded pseudo-crimson armor, pseudo-crimson dynamo, half...
You know, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense that he's they also took from the Crimson Dynamo. That makes a lot of sense now.
A little bit, yeah. So the fight's 2v1, but the two of them are a little overpowered by Vanko, because his suit, he's upgraded it quite a bit thanks to Tony's recommendations and just his own general intelligence. The suit has them both on the edge. They're both basically being strangled. And it's at that point that they both realize they have to work together, and so they both bring up their hands and shoot their repulsor beams at each other to meet in the middle where Vanko is, and it creates a huge-ass explosion that takes out Vanko, and they think the day is saved. Or is it? At that point, what happens is the drones start bleeping, those red lights on their chest start going off, and Tony realizes, oh, they're all rigged to explode. Or Jarvis tells him that, I don't remember which. But the two of them fly off. Tony realizes that Pepper's still in the air, and he goes to save her. She is just standing around awkwardly next to the machine as if nothing's going to happen. And seconds before it goes off, and seconds before Tony saves her, she's like, makes the connection, oh, wait, that is probably a bomb that is ticking down. I should probably run, but I won't, because dramatic tension. So Tony flies in, saves her, gets her to a nearby rooftop where she just unloads on him and just, like, can't handle the stress, the pressure, the craziness that's going on, all the insane suicidal attempts he's basically been doing. And that's when he kind of makes the move, kisses her, and they have, like, the little romantic, moment that they need each other to... Well, Tony needs her, and I guess you could argue that she needs Tony, but why, I don't know for sure yet. Rhodey's there. Rhodey's there. And he's like, go get a roof or whatever. And the two of them have a bit of back and forth. He flies off basically saying, hey, my car got blown up. I'm going to keep the suit for a little bit. Hope that's okay. And Tony's like, it's not. And he's like, I'm keeping the suit. And he flies off. And then after that... crap, what happens after that then? Oh yeah. Then Tony goes to meet Nick Fury, who basically tells him, good work, but we only want Iron Man for the Avengers. We don't want you for the Avengers. We want you on as a consultant. And Tony's basically like, oh yeah, you can't afford me. He does ask for one favor, though, because they're supposed to be getting medals, him and Rhodey, at Ed Washington. And Fury's like, I could pull some strings. And that's when we see Senator Stern show up to give him their medals. And basically, I love the line where he drops, when he talks to Tony, saying, because he pricks Tony with the medal that he puts on his lapel. or on his jacket, and he's like, it's amazing how annoying a little prick can be, huh?
That was fucking perfect.
I don't like the character, but I love the job that the actor brings to the table. He does a good job with him.
He's important. I'm sorry. Spoilers.
Don't worry. Winter Soldier's not far off from here. But with that, that's basically the end of the movie. Credits roll and everything's fine. But then we go to the land of enchantment, i.e. New Mexico, also the land of crystal blue meth, and it is there that we see Clark Gregg, a.k.a. Phil Coulson, son of Cole, step out of his, government-assigned car, and he sees a crater in the middle of the desert. He's, just staring down at it. He gets on his phone, and he says, Sir, I believe we found it. And the camera pulls away from Coulson, getting closer and closer to the crater, and the last image we see is the mythical hammer, and we come to know eventually as Mjolnir, sitting in the crater with a clap of thunder to close us out.
Yay!
That is Iron Man 2. That synopsis went on way longer than I thought it was going to. I'll have to make some cuts.
In this movie.
For as short as it is and how jumbled it is, and I have some complaints about that, it's very dense, and I don't know if that is good or bad.
So, watching it again, I was actually having a hard time pinpointing what I didn't like about the movie. I have a general feeling that the movie is not as well done as other movies in the MCU, but I see everything that the movie was attempting to do and succeeds at doing. I think where it falls short is it's not as, for lack of a better term, elegant or as well constructed, well put together.
So, fun fact: this movie actually was in development and production and all that during the writer's strike of, I think, 2009,
Really?
2010. I think 2009. So a lot of the scripting and dialogue and all that stuff, I'm going to guess some of it was improv, but I guess the script was probably more slapped together to get the movie done rather than to tell a good story. Because during production, I did a little reading to see exactly where the issues in this film were. Jon Favreau, prior to Iron Man 1 being released, wanted to do a trilogy, and he wanted to tackle the Demon in a Bottle storyline. You can see trace elements of that in this film,
Definitely.
Especially during the party scene. But with the success of Iron Man 1, the studio kind of pulled the reins back a bit, saying, hey, listen, this is a family-friendly affair, and seeing a superhero get drunk and do dumb shit probably won't sell well to children, so we're going to have to change this up a little bit. So the original storyline Jon Favreau wanted to do got axed, or at least trimmed down quite a bit. And so we have this, I'm not going to say terrible, but it's definitely a more confusing mess than what I think was originally envisioned for a lot of different factors. The writer's strike and the change of the plot being the two major points of contention.
From hearing that, I can see, you can definitely see elements of Tony's hedonism coming into play. I think what ended up happening was, rather than tackling the fact that Tony is straight up, legitimately, canonically a functioning alcoholic, instead they leaned more towards the fact that Tony was essentially afraid of dying, and didn't really know how to process that because he thought he had to do it all by himself. So, which led to him getting piss drunk and being really irresponsible with the Iron Man suit. So rather than making it a reoccurring addiction and huge character flaw, they made it kind of a situational thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and looking at it that way, I feel like they chose a.
I think so too, but I feel like that's as close to the Demon in the Bottle character progression that you're gonna get.
I know, but at the same time, that's one of the better Iron Man stories because it just shows how far a hero can fall, and it just, I don't know, there's just so much character building that it does that I kind of wish they had done more with it. And I think a lot of fans are probably wanting that too. And I'll be the first to admit it. When I first saw this movie, I loved it as a kid. Or I guess not a kid, but like when it first came out. But to compare it to another film, Man of Steel, every time I go back to watch it again and again, I find myself finding more and more problems.
Okay, so what problems did you encounter in this movie? Like what didn't you like? What didn't you like?
I'm glad you asked. Because after a certain point in the movie, I'm like, wait a minute, why is this happening? So I started making a list of things I've noticed that kind of stuck out to me. So number one, during the fight scene between Rhodey and Tony at his house, there's a moment where Pepper turns to Natalie and says, I know what you're here for, I know the truth about you. And then Tony and Rhodey crash through the ceiling or floor or whatever. They stop talking, and that never gets addressed again. What was Pepper talking about? What was she addressing there? And why did that suddenly not become an issue after that scene? I don't know what happened there. Yeah, no,
that's weird. That's a plot hole there.
This next one, it's brought up in the movie, but it's never actually answered or addressed. So, Rhodey goes into Tony's house, takes a suit, and fights Iron Man. Does Tony not have safety protocols in place of these suits to prevent unauthorized use? I know Nick Fury mentions this, that he does have those protocols, so why did it not work?
I think there might have been, like, it might have been an illusion that he wanted somebody to take the suit, but that's also a big plot hole for me too, because the big thing about Iron Man 1 was that in order to make this, the big thing about Iron Man 1 was that in order for this technology to even be functional, the only thing that can actually run the suit is the thing inside Tony's chest. Like, you can make a suit, but the technology to actually run the shit does not exist outside of Tony. So that actually makes Tony a really good deterrent, because even if you somehow manage to steal a suit, you can't do shit because the only arc reactor that can run it is in his chest. Why in the fuck is he keeping arc reactors in every one of his suits? Literally anybody can take it from him at this point. Why?
Fair enough. Let's see what else I have. The other one I have before, I already mentioned the falling glass and the stolen Stark tech brought to the Stark Expo. Those points I still stand by, because I don't think either of those make any sense. But the one that I haven't brought up yet is when Black Widow grapples Happy Hogan during their little MMA sparring bit. Doesn't she think that'll risk exposing her identity at all?
You know, like, I feel like she registered an attack and fucking took him down instantly.
Yeah, those are the major plot points, or plot holes, I should say, that I had issues with. And I don't know, I feel like the movie definitely has a few hitches going on through it.
I feel like this movie is Marvel's first attempt at telling like very deep and like compacted storylines, not necessarily like emotionally deep, although there were definitely some emotional points in it. Yeah, a very dense story. Like, they're doing a lot of storytelling, and they're doing a lot of world building, really, because not only are they doing a lot of stuff with Iron Man's story, but they also started laying the seeds for the greater universe to start unfolding with that drawing of the Tesseract, and the fact that essentially Stark is creating a new source of energy. I'm coming to realize that with each Iron Man movie, with the exception of 3 possibly, but every Iron Man movie demonstrates a huge shift on a global scale. Like, I think that Iron Man's movies and Captain America's movies are really the ones that really signal major shifts in the world in general. I mean, Iron Man 1 shows that, hey, he went public as Iron Man, he's now a nuclear deterrent, he's single-handedly, like, causing world peace and, like, calming down the East-West relations, whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. And then Iron Man 2, he's creating a new source of renewable, clean energy that will revolutionize the energy game worldwide. So I don't know. They tried to do a lot with this story, and I feel like they succeeded in doing a lot, but in the process they made a couple of mistakes that they learned from and ultimately fixed with later movies in the MCU.
I would say definitely that they did try to do a lot, and I feel like a lot of the, I guess, framework or skeleton of this movie is mimicked in other films like Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they're trying to world build and do a lot in one film, and whether this succeeds or not is a whole other question, but a lot of films seem to try to ape this particular skeleton, and they all kind of fall under the weight of trying to do so much at once, because they're all trying to be sequels, they're all trying to be commercials and or prequels to bigger franchises, bigger world-building bits, and they're trying to also tell its own story, and they're trying to do so much at once, and it's one of those questions of, does this actually succeed in doing any one of those good, or is it all just kind of mediocre across the board? But we'll get to that when we rank the movie. Before we get to any further, let's do a quick review roundup. I've already scrolled down to Roger Ebert and a few others. So, according to Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times, Iron Man 2 is a polished, high-ozone sequel, not as good as the original, but building once again on a quirky performance by Robert Downey Jr. Of course, we also have Michael Phillips, who says that what saves it is Favreau's work with the cast. Roger Moore says, if the morality, the pathos of death, the tenderness of the would-be romance between Stark, Iron Man, and his assistant Pepper Potts are missing, Iron Man 2 is still a fun ride. There's a few critics who did not take so well to it. Rene Rodriguez says Iron Man 2 is more of a setup for the upcoming Avengers picture than a standalone adventure, a puzzling and unexpected disappointment, considering how fresh and entertaining the first picture was.
That's a little fair. Like that, there is some
a bit.
There is some truth to that.
The review scores overall were not as good as the original movie. Instead of being the 80s and 90s, this one is sitting at 73 for critics and 72 for audiences. So I think when it first came out, it probably wasn't that low. I think it was definitely sitting higher. But I think, like I said, as time has gone on and as better Marvel movies have come out and people have gone back to see this one, I don't think this holds up quite as well as everyone else wants it to.
I'm surprised that the critics rated it a little higher than the moviegoers. Yeah.
It's not something you see very often. So that's our review roundup. Let's move on to our listener question of the week. So last week, we said that we talked about Hulk, and I thought a fun question would be Hulk villains. What would you want to see in a future Hulk movie or just an MCU film with a Hulk villain in it? So I did get one response on Tumblr, I believe. It's from a guy who goes by the name of Hips Thor.
Thor! Yes! I love it.
I can pronounce that one. His recommendation is the character known as Maestro. Ryan, are you familiar with Maestro at all?
I am not. Who pray tell is Maestro?
So I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I knew. Maestro, the Hulk of a divergent future some 100 years from the present, the Maestro rose to power after an atomic war left many of Earth's heroes and villains dead, and the radiation strengthened the Hulk. So he's basically a future Hulk who's come back to the past to basically just fuck with the Hulk and say, hey, you can't save the world, I can. But he's also demented and crazy from years of loneliness and isolation.
What?
So
damn,
it's a pretty cool idea. I like that.
That's pretty good. Well, I mean, Aaron, what do you think? I mean, what Hulk villain would you like to see?
I think he was already in Hulk, the original Hulk, but I think it was a different take on the character. So I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's ZZAX. I think it's Zaz.
Okay.
He's basically a gamma-created energy being. He's a living entity of electricity given sentience by absorbing thoughts of terrorists and engineers. As the former sabotaged latter, Zaz went on a rampage sucking the consciousness out of its victims before being beaten by the Hulk and Hawkeye. And in his particular case, I think that he was given this ability via gamma radiation.
That's interesting. Oh, so that does remind me of the ultimate villain in Ang Lee's Hulk.
Yep, I think that I think that one they combined the character of Brian Banner with the character of Zaz to make that, and I don't think it went over quite as well, but I think if you did the story more in line with the comics, you'd probably get something pretty good. So if I'm not going to go with the flashy Zaz, I'd probably go with a Gamma World-inspired leader storyline, because I think that'd be really cool. Plus, it involves all the Avengers, so you can actually get a team-up movie and avoid the Universal problem. So I'd be down for that.
Okay.
How about you, sir? I know you're not as well-versed in Hulk villains, so if you have anything, I'm curious to see what you got.
Well, I mean, honestly, the like I mentioned earlier, I'm not well versed with the Hulk's Rogues Gallery. But the one thing that I really want to see in a Hulk movie, I know I'm never going to see, because I would give anything in my possession to see a cinematic version of World War Hulk. Honest to God, it would be the greatest thing of all time. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, the general story is it takes off directly from Planet Hulk. The general story is that a group of very powerful beings on Earth, made of like essentially the strongest, the greatest representative of every like superpowered group on Earth, make the decision that the Hulk is too dangerous to be left on Earth, and so they send him off on a spaceship to another planet where he can survive and live out the rest of his life in peace. It's uninhabited, but it would allow him to it would still allow him to live and be alone, like everybody would leave him alone, like he's always been asking for. But of course, something goes wrong in the space shuttle. He's stranded on this other planet, which we come to realize is known as Sakaar, which is definitely populated. The Hulk is made into a gladiator. He ends up taking over the planet, becoming its king. His gamma blood actually brings life to the planet, and he actually manages to find a home and love and has a son and rules as king, as the Hulk, for like a decade. But the ship that he actually crash-landed on, after a decade or so, it's revealed that the ship actually has a nuclear bomb in it that was designed to go off mid-flight, actually killing the Hulk, as opposed to just letting him live out the rest of his life. But since the ship was damaged, it takes like a decade before the bomb actually goes off, pretty much obliterating most of the life on Sakaar, on the Hulk's planet, and wiping out all the peaceful and like great life that the Hulk actually made. So when he realizes this, he swears vengeance on the people who sent him there, namely Earth.
Mostly Tony Stark, because let's face it, a lot of that was probably his idea.
A lot of it was mostly Tony Stark's idea, because Tony is on this council that decided to send him over there. But the last remnants of Sakaar, he actually gives them the Hulk serum, turns them into Hulks like him, and he leads this group of gamma-fueled warriors back to Earth, and essentially declares war on the planet until they give him the individuals that screwed over his life. We'll never see that on the big screen. But I really want to.
And I think it's not only because of the Universal problem or because of the lack of interest from the general public. It's because Tony is supposed to be a good guy, and it paints him as a clearly horrible person.
Yeah.
You're not going to convince Disney to do that.
Tony in the comics is not super goody. He's a good, he's a hero. He is a hero, and he definitely looks out for humanity's best interest, but he does so in a couple of very ruthless decisions. So yeah. Tony Stark is kind of the devil.
So that was our listener question of the week. So our next question, and I'm going to stick with what I got here, but I was tempted to change it, but I don't have anything better at the moment. So, guys, we're now in the second Iron Man movie. So of all the Iron Man moments from every film in the MCU, from beginning to where we're at now, what is your favorite Iron Man moment? Your favorite Tony Stark moment? Put it down in the comments below. We want to know what you guys think is the best moment of Tony Stark in any of these films.
That's a good question.
You can leave it in the comments. You can go ahead and message us on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. You can go to evacstation@gmail.com and send us your answers that way. We're open to get that. We're open for the whole week. And if we get any extra answers, like I said, I'll splice them in. So feel free to send it in as soon as you can.
Next I know my answer. Oh, God.
I think I might know mine too, but we're going to have to hold it off for another week.
Yeah, I know.
With that, Ryan, it's time for everyone's favorite portion, the No Google Trivia War.
Oh, boy.
So this week we actually have questions because we, didn't have any technical issues, knock on wood. So let's go ahead and begin. We have 3 questions, one easy, one medium, one hard, and the goal is to see who can get the most points by the end of this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 1, and the winner will be given a shawarma by the loser.
Yay!
Yeah! So, Ryan, do you want to go first or should I go first?
I can go first. Mine are probably going to be easy. I'm sorry. But for the easy question, who was the first Marvel character outside of the Norse pantheon deemed worthy to wield Thor's hammer?
I want to say, it's Beta Ray Bill.
You are correct, sir. Beta Ray Bill is indeed the first person outside the Pantheon deemed worthy enough. So worthy that after proving it, Odin actually crafted Beta Ray Bill's own version of Mjolnir called Stormbreaker.
I've always loved Beta Ray Bill. I really hope they get him into a movie, even as a cameo. That'd be great.
There was already a cameo.
There's the statue face thing, but I want to see the character though, man. But that's good question. Good question. I almost said Eric Masterson, but I'm like, no, I think he's after Beta Ray Bill.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, so my question for you, Ryan.
Yes, sir.
This is a lot easier. What is the name of the coma that befalls Odin?
All right, that would be the Odin sleep.
I made this question. I made this question in with Max in mind, so I thought. Okay.
That's all right. It's the sleep that Odin has to go into once a year in order to maintain his power.
All right, so we both get a point. That's pretty easy right there. Ryan,
right.
what's our medium question?
All right, so the medium question. This comes straight out of Norse mythology. Although these guys do make an appearance. These guys actually make an appearance in Avengers. But so it's Anyway, Odin has 2 ravens that he uses to gather information and find out what's going on throughout the realms. What are the names of those ravens?
Oh man, that is actually a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. I know they each represent like one of his eyes, so to speak. But I don't remember exactly what their names were. I want to say Nevermore for one of them, but I know that's a Ruby name.
That's an Edgar Allan Poe name.
Man, crap, I have no idea, actually.
Alright, so the names are actually, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but the names are Hugin and Munin, which actually mean thought and memory.
I never would have gotten those. Alright, so my question, medium, for you, is who are the 3 members of the Warriors 3?
Oh, fuck, I never remember these goddamn names.
I'm sure you're going to get at least 1 or 2 of them. It's the 3rd one that's going to throw you up.
I never remember the goddamn names. Okay. Fuck. I'm pretty sure... I think it's the pretty-looking one that's named, Fandral? Vandral? Yes.
That's
maybe?
one.
Oh, the fucking dwarf is Volstagg.
That's
I remember
two.
that guy. I can never remember the Asian guy's name. Oof. I can't call the Asian guy's name. I can't call him. He wields a fucking mace. He's an Asian dude. I can't call his name. God damn it.
I feel fine giving you 1 point for that. The third person is Hogan.
Hogan? As in Hulk Hogan?
Well, like Hogun.
Huh. Damn. I got closer than
I knew you were gonna get I knew you were gonna get those two. I didn't expect you to get Hogan.
I only remembered Volstagg because of his relevance in the current Thor comic story. Like Volstagg is actually the guy who picks up the ultimate version of Mjolnir that looks like a fucking half hammer, half axe, and he becomes the War Thor. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. But that's the only reason I remember that guy.
All right. What is my hard question? Hopefully,
all right.
Close this gap up a little bit.
This one's coming straight out of Norse mythology. In the Asgardian breakdown of the 9 realms, the realms are connected like all together by something that they call the World Tree. What is the name of the World Tree?
I actually know this one thanks to my animes. This is Yggdrasil.
Yes! Ding, 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 ding! He got it! That is 3 points for you, sir.
I am closing that gap. So good. So, Ryan, my hard question's in a very similar vein of thought here. What are, aside from Midgard and Asgard, the 9 realms?
Oh, you... That's so difficult!
I will make you a deal.
Bruh!
I will make you a deal. I only need 5 of them.
Bruh. Oh my god. Okay. Fuck. Okay.
I took out the 2 easy ones, so I knew you'd get those anyway. So
be like Asgard, Midgard, hey. Okay. Fuck. Frost giants come from Jotunheim.
That's one.
I think the Dark Elves. Do they come? I think the Dark Elves come from Niflheim.
That's 2.
I think. Fuck. What's the dwarven one? God damn it. It's actually hilarious because years back I was doing an RP and we were doing some stuff with the 9 realms, and I called the dwarves' homeland Dwarfelheim. I know that's not right. I know that's incorrect, but was it Muspelheim? I think.
Muspelheim. You're close on that one.
Damn it. Oh, dude, I don't know. I know. There's. So the Dark Elves come from Niflheim. The Ice Giants come from Jotunheim. Dwarves come from Muspelheim or something similar, something close to that.
You're very close on that one.
I know there's a realm of light elves, but I don't know the name of it. Yeah, I only have those 3. Damn.
All right, so your full answers. I'm going to give you... I feel like 1 point's fair for that.
I can take 1 point. I can take the pity point.
Okay, so your full answers would have been Niflheim, Muspelheim, there's a P in there, Jotunheim, Vanaheim, Alfheim, Svartalheim, and Helheim.
Helheim! Oh my god. Oh,
I thought you would have gotten that one.
The Realm of the Dead! How did I forget the Realm of the Dead? Helheim.
Alright, so that brings me up to... Hang on, where's my scoreboard here? There we go. So that brings me, I had 5, I gained 4, so I'm at 9 points now. I'm catching up.
Nice.
Max is still at a measly 2. And then Ryan, you were at 7. You gained 3, so you're only 1 point ahead now. I'm closing that gap.
Okay. I have to
That
think of
that
harder
shawarma will be mine.
questions. I have to think of harder questions.
To be fair, the crow one was really hard, or the raven one was really hard.
Oh man, Alfheim, Svartalheim. Where, who resides in Svartalheim?
I can look that up real quick.
That's just gonna bug me.
Svartalheim. Let's see. According to Norse mythology, let's see. In Norse mythology, Svartalfar, or Svartalheim, also known as... Okay, let's look at the Marvel database and get the actual Marvel answer on this one. That's the official one.
Yeah, what the fuck is Norse mythology? Talking about Marvel here.
This is home of the Dark Elves.
Oh, shit. Okay, well then I was just completely off.
Well, you said Muspelheim. That one is fire demons.
Where the fuck are the dwarves from?
Dwarves are from Nidavellir.
Oh god, I was just all off. Okay, yeah, no, fuck it. I deserve only 1 point for that. That's fine.
Interesting. So the 9 realms of the Marvel universe don't match the 9 realms of the actual mythology. They've swapped a few of them out. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nidavellir is not one of them, and Helheim isn't even in part of the Marvel list.
Mm.
That is very interesting. Fun facts.
Fun facts. I'm having fun with these facts.
And with that, everybody, it's on to our last and final segment, ranking the Marvel movies from best to worst. We're going to rank them every week to determine what the best Marvel movie of all time is. Today is Iron Man 2. Ryan, this is our 3rd film. Where would you like to rank this film in our top 3 here?
I personally rank it at 2nd thus far. Below Iron Man 1, but above the Hulk.
I would personally rank it actually just below the Hulk.
Really?
Don't get me wrong. I like Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. I think that alone makes it a very good film. But I think the problem I have is that Hulk kind of knows what it wants to be and does an adequate job doing the job it sets itself out to do. Iron Man 2, like I said, due to writing strikes and behind-the-scenes changes, it doesn't quite have an identity. It seems like it's trying to juggle all these different ideas and concepts all at once, and I don't think it holds any one of them up to a very high degree, aside from, again, the antics of Tony Stark. But everything outside of that, though, just feels like it's not serviced as well as it could be. And so it's a film that seems to lack identity, to me at least. But if you can make a case for me to have it above Hulk, I'll see what I can do for it.
Well, I mean, I rank it above the Hulk because I feel like it attempts to do more than the Hulk. I feel like, granted, the Hulk pretty much knew what it was going for, but that's like setting the bar low because you know you can hit it. I mean, the action was great, but aside from that, I was pretty bored throughout the whole movie. Whereas Iron Man 2, yeah, it stumbled a little bit, but its ultimate goals and attempts were to tell a deep story about Tony really coming to grips with the fact that he can't do everything by himself, that he has to lean on other people, unlearning really toxic behavior and learning how to lean on other people while setting the stage for other stuff that we would find throughout the MCU and ultimately setting up the overarching theme of the necessity of teamwork that would really come to fruition in the Avengers. I feel like this was really the first movie that set up a lot of the groundwork for the MCU. And while it had a little bit of stumbles, I can respect the attempt. And I thought it didn't do a bad job at setting up a lot of the stuff that would become really important later on.
I do wish Max was here to break the tie, but I will concede. I think you do make a valid point that it trying to do more, even though not fully successfully, it takes more risks and tries to do more than other films at this early stage are trying to do, and I think that is a notable. It's notable and worth mentioning. So yeah, I would say I can concede. I don't think it goes too far up the list. I think it'll definitely, for me, still be bottom half. I think the top half.
It will.
We're going to get some heavy hitters soon.
There are definitely better movies out there. It won't stay in the top half for long, but of the first three, yes, I definitely put Iron Man 2 above Hulk. Yeah.
All right, everybody. So that means that we have Iron Man 2 is our number 2, Iron Man 1 is number 1, and Hulk has taken the bottom of the ranks. If you have a suggestion for your top favorite Marvel film, please let us know. Send us messages at evacstation@gmail.com. Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook are all acceptable as well. Or in the comments down below. And if we have enough people saying their favorite film, we will go ahead and rate it during that film's podcast and give your reasons as to why it's the best one. Ryan, next week we're going to be tackling Thor. Are you excited for that one?
I am pretty excited for Thor. It will be... Once again, it's been a long time since I've seen it. I'm excited to see it again, but I'm not super excited because I know what I thought of it the first time, and it was kind of disappointing the first time. So it'll be interesting to see what time does for my rewatch of it.
Funny story is I think Thor is probably the one I've seen the most outside of Iron Man for this first.
Really?
For the first. So, Ryan, I happen to know a lot of different women. And one thing that women and I have in common is that we can enjoy the Thor movie for very different reasons, of course. So a lot of times I've seen this movie was not necessarily by my original choice. It was just, oh, hey, look, there's a hot guy in there. They're going to watch that. Cool.
Oh, my God.
So yeah, that's my history with Thor. We'll get to more. We'll get more of that next week.
That's good. That's real good.
So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time for more Marvels Across the Nine Realms.
Bye.